when I talk about leadership, I'm talking about someone that can say, this is an economic growth agenda. This is an agenda, once again, for our national security. And you're looking at a guy, I spent 22 years in the military. We can have a national defense, a foreign policy that is fiscally responsible. And you have to have someone that can articulate that. When I look at the fact you've got more admirals in the Navy than you have ships, something is upside down. We've grown the bureaucracy of, the State Department or the Department of Defense, but we're cutting back on the trigger puller, on the warfighter. When we're handing out pink slips to young men and women who are leaders on the battlefield, but you can't pink slip anybody in Washington, D.C. When you see yesterday how the head, the Secretary of the Veterans Affairs, what he said to Representative Mike Kaufman, saying, I ran a large corporation. What have you done? Well, he was a guy that, he hadn't done too much. 22 years in the United States Marine Corps, a couple of combat tours.
Both Iraq wars.
Both Iraq wars. But that's the type of disdain. And so I agree with you that we have to be careful about the types of individuals that are up there with this big government, bureaucratic, nanny state, top-down driven philosophy. We have got to find leadership in this country that restores the preeminence of individual rights, but understands how you have to defeat these enemies and protect our country and restore economic growth.
He is now the head of the National Center for Policy Action, based here in Dallas, Texas, and we're thrilled to have him as a fellow Texan, and especially if Ted Cruz becomes president, we need a Secretary of Defense. And of course, you could always just run for president.
True.
I ran this morning for my health.
No, do you miss Washington at all?
I don't miss the atmosphere of inside the Beltway. Now, being able to wake up and know that you are representing 700,000, South Floridians, that was an incredible honor. And you think about, for 22 years, you wore the uniform to protect those institutions, and then you get the opportunity to be inside one of those institutions and be a voice for those men and women that are still out there in uniform. That's what you miss. But, we still have a platform to be able to, advocate for them.
Is this, I'm trying to figure out how exactly to say this. I've lost my faith in the parties entirely. I think
a lot of people have.
Yeah. And I wonder, with the corruption that is now in Washington, do we survive without a reset?
I don't know if we have to get to an exact reset. I think that you are seeing an awakening in the American people. But again, it's going to come back to a leader that can talk about principle and not party.
Did you see one?
Right now that we're struggling. We really are. I think that there are some bright lights out there. We'll see how we progress. Now, see, why you want to put me on the spot with names? This is what I tell people. I'm not into names. I'm into looking for a figure that can restore American strength and exceptionalism.
Let me ask you this.
Who is that figure?
Who is that figure? No.
Well, you sit around and look at these guys more than I do.
So here's, again, from a conversation earlier this morning. I'm reading a book on Winston Churchill. It's this great book on Winston Churchill. And that's what we need. We need somebody with that moral clarity.
That's right. A Churchillian moment.
Correct. And we were talking about this morning, that while I don't see a Churchill out there, Churchill is made at the moment.
Sure.
Do you believe that we have men or women that have that ability?
Absolutely.
That are out, that are known now?
Yeah. I mean, maybe not known. But this country has always found, those leaders that were there for that crisis moment. I mean, going all the way back to, the French and Indian War, to the Revolutionary War, all throughout our history. I tell folks, one of the greatest examples of leadership was a simple guy who was a professor of rhetoric at Bowdoin College, Maine, Colonel Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain. And when you think about what Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain did on the second day of Gettysburg, there at Little Round Top, he did not just save that day. He did not just save the Battle of Gettysburg. He probably saved the preservation of this Union. And that was a simple man that came out of nowhere. But he answered a call, and he made a difference in the evolution of this country. And so I believe that there will be someone that stands up that will rally the American people based upon a recommitment to our constitutional value.
It's nice to have
the
him
official
here.
Glenn Beck glass now. They took away my plastic bottle.
That's right.
I'm so classy now.
So glad to have you here.
I'm glad to be a true honor. And this is not going to be the last time.
Good. Good. We're big supporters of yours, and so is our audience.
So is our audience. We just did this poll where we asked them to rank
28.
It was 28 total potential candidates for president. Not that would necessarily. I know.
And we just said
I came in as number 30.
Yeah,
no,
congratulations.
listen,
A little higher than that.
Listen, this is actually quite surprising. This is our audience, and I don't know how many tens of thousands of people participated in this, but we asked them to give them A through F.
Yeah, not just rank them or just pick your favorite, but actually give a grade A through F for each individual candidate.
Number 28, coming in at number 28, Lindsey Graham. Jeb Bush, number 27. Chris Christie, number 26. John Huntsman, number 25. Mike Huckabee, number 24. Donald Trump, 23. Haley Barbour, 22. Rob Portman, 21. Kelly Ayotte, 20. John Thune, 19. Mitt Romney, 18. Susana Martinez, 17. Carly Fiorina, 16. Mike Pence, 15. John Kasich, 14. John Bolton, 13. Rick Santorum, 12. Paul Ryan, 11. Nikki Haley, 10. Sarah Palin, 9. Marco Rubio, 8. Rick Perry, 7. Bobby Jindal, 6. Rand Paul, 5. Alan West, 4. Ben Carson, 3. Scott Walker, 2. And Ted Cruz, number 1.
Well, I like that because Ohio State was ranked number 4 going into the college football playoff.
And they won it. They won it.
I'm just saying, No,
It's pretty amazing. And
it's very humbling.
And it shows that, at least in our audience, that the progressives in the Republican Party are
at or near the bottom.
At or near the bottom.
Yeah.
The ones that everybody who the press is holding up are the ones at the bottom of the list.
Well, we have to stop listening to the press. We have to stop allowing the New York Times, Washington Post, whomever to pick our quote unquote champion and our standard bearer. And again, what we just talked about, it has to come back to principle. If we don't make a clear delineation between who we are and what we stand up for as constitutional conservatives against the progressive socialists, you can't win by just being a slighter shade of the other side.
Right.
Because when you do that, not only do you confuse yourself, you confuse the people. You can go out into the black community, and if you make the principal argument, the black community will follow you. Why do I say that? Because at the turn of the century, Booker T. Washington, his 3 principles were education, entrepreneurship, and self-reliance. Now, that is not, the message that Al Sharpton is delivering.
Sure.
So why can't someone go into these communities, just the same as in a Hispanic community? It's about family. It's about faith. It's about small business ownership. Why can't we go into these communities and send that message instead of the message of you're going to get the free 2 years of community college? But, oh, by the way, we're going to tax your 529 college savings plan because we believe in our equality of outcomes. We don't believe in you having an equality of opportunity. Simple case that we should be able to make.
Have you seen a Booker T. Washington Up From Slavery book lately?
You're not going to. You know why? Because the left demonized him. That's why they created Webb Du Bois, and they supported W.B. Du Bois to go after Booker T. Washington.
Yes.
And I would challenge anyone out there, show me a commercial, show me any elevation of Booker T. Washington in Black History Month. When this man was probably the most courageous individual.
He was unbelievable.
Forward-thinking, Tuskegee Institute.
Yep.
Yeah.
He was, and if you look at the books now, because I have a first edition, and then I have the new edition, and the new edition starts with a foreword that says, from some Harvard professor, we don't believe that this is actually true. We don't believe that he was actually a slave, and so you have to read this with a grain of salt. I mean, they discredit. Yeah, they discredit.
They have to discredit.
They discredit it from the beginning.
Oh my gosh.
They have to discredit. They have to discredit. Frederick Douglass. They have to discredit Booker T. Washington.
And those two men are some of the greatest Americans to ever live.
Absolutely, and that's why I call Booker T. Washington really the father of black conservatism. This is not something new, black conservatism. This has always been there. It has always been part of the community. And
how do you feel about Mike Bloomberg yesterday coming out, or day before yesterday coming out and saying that we have to disarm the black community?
That's scary. Why do we need to disarm the black community?
We have to disarm because, in his own words, because
he went after Sheriff David Clark up in Milwaukee.
Yes,
who was a Democrat. I mean, and so there you see that ability to talk about principle. Instead of the left understanding what is really ailing the black community, the breakdown of the family. Let's go back 50 years, Great Society programs. And when Lyndon Johnson came out and talked about rewarding a girl with a check, a woman with a check, for having a child out of wedlock, and as long as she kept a man out of the home, she would continue to have that check. It was a Democrat senator from New York, Daniel Patrick Moynihan, that predicted you will destroy the black family because of that. And so my wife Angela and I today, we're only 28% in the black community. Mothers and fathers in the homes with the kids. See, that is the problem. Education, that is the problem. And so everything else breaks down from there. So Michael Bloomberg saying we're going to disarm the black community does not want to tackle what the real issue was. The liberal, progressive, socialist policies coming out of this great society, coming out of this war on poverty that has decimated the inner city.
How do you get that message to the black community, Alan? Because they're so indoctrinated now with the Democrats
but you'd be
and
surprised.
their programs.
You don't need to worry about the whole community. You're never going to win 100%. You're never going to get 99.9%.
Yeah.
But if all of a sudden the black community is 25% saying we don't want this, then you have really put two torpedoes in the broadside of the liberal, progressive Democrat Party.
It only takes 18% as a tipping point.
That's it.
18% of any community. If they would just walk, all of us would just walk in lockstep.
We missed an incredible opportunity when Mayor Bill de Blasio, an admitted avowed socialist, came out against the charter school programs in New York City. One of the best performing schools there in New York City, charter school, Success Academy in Harlem. Who were the ones that complained to Governor Cuomo about Mayor Bill de Blasio? Single black mothers.